Well, and just looking at yesterday's Daily Nation, a cyber story is all about NASA and the development within NASA. Wetangula says, I will tame the hyenas in NASA. And of course, we want to know who these hyenas are within NASA this morning. And of course, who is actually standing on a good state to tell us this, none other than Dr. Eseli Simiu, to mention the hyenas within NASA. What are the hyenas doing?
I think journalists take things in their own context and put it out there.
So these hyenas was actually taken out of context?
For their own reasons. Because if I remember what Wetangula said, was that when a hyena wants to eat its young, it first accuses them of smelling like goats. And then it was expounded to mean that the hyenas in NASA. You know, that's the same context that was used to turn the senators against him, that he had called them some names. You see, Wetangula is fond of using those kinds of expressions, which don't necessarily mean what the journalists would like would like it to mean. However, all said and done, I can trace the problems in NASA way back to the pre-election period, because at that time we had a management team. I was part of the management co-chairing the whole process, and we said this team is not good enough. After the elections, we need to expand this. Why CORD survived that long was because each party had a certain number of people, depending on their strengths in parliament, to create that management board. So that when you are co-chairing, you must be co-chairing something, a board or something. We failed after elections to institute this board. And in fact, I must admit to the nation that the co-chairs never met again, because we were usually convened by James Orengo, and as the senior most party chair. And every time we tried to get him to get us to meet, it didn't work. And that has resulted in the implosion that you are seeing now. So I think it's a question of, I can't run away from my responsibility as one of the co-chairs, that perhaps I've played a role in it by not having, we didn't meet, so therefore I must have played a role. If we had met as the management board, I'm sure many of these things would have been stemmed in the bud, would have been cut in the bud before they go to the point where they are.
Right.
So I would say that it's a failure of managing the coalition. You see, CORD survived because we were able to manage it well, so that it survived that long. But after that, I think we've failed to manage the coalition. And because of that failure of managing the coalition, that's why we are seeing what we are seeing now. In my opinion, it will be very difficult to hold on to NASA anymore, considering what has happened. And that is, I would consider it water under the bridge. I think where things have reached, it will be very, very difficult to reconstitute and work with respect to each other, because there's been a lot of disrespect, a lot of words have been thrown around, and it will be difficult to heal those wounds that have been created within the NASA coalition. Okay. So in my opinion, in my honest opinion, it's time to let go.
It's time to let go, so does this mean also this is a crumbling of NASA?
I think so.
Right, this is the crumbling of NASA. But
because even as we got into this crisis, we've not had a meeting as the NASA management team. We've not had a meeting as the NASA PG parliamentary group as a whole in total, which you used to have frequently as CORD, and that's what kept us together. So I think perhaps some reached a point where they felt NASA had perhaps outlived its usefulness. What pains me is why we didn't just agree to let go instead of bringing in all this acrimony. Because, you know, in politics, they say there are no permanent friends, there are no permanent enemies. But some of the acrimony that has been brought up was totally unnecessary. I think we would have done it in a better way. Even if we were to part ways, we would have done it in a much better way than the way we've done it. Because it's unfortunate that it has to end that way when quite a sizable part of Kenyans really believed in NASA and what NASA stood for. But in my opinion, it's going to be a real difficult task to keep NASA going as NASA is known today.
All right.
Yeah.
Maybe the problem question would have been, because of course, what are the structures within NASA that should have held NASA together? Did we have any structures in the first place?
That's what I'm saying. Yes. We failed to set up the structure that actually held CORD together. In the sense that, for example, in this case, after the elections, looking at the party strengths within Parliament and whatever, we were supposed to set up a board so that...
which was not set.
Which was not set. Mm-hmm. And whenever we wanted to get these meetings going, somehow...
All right. So how are you operating, or how is NASA operating? Because we've not, you know, sounded the death knell yet. Yes.
What happened is now that we were not functioning, we sort of ceded the ground to the so-called technical team, and that technical team is not necessarily composed of politicians. Mm. And I think that's where the rain started beating us, because then decisions were being made without passing through the political wing, because then the board would have been the political wing to know, to actually process whatever decisions are coming from the technical team. So I believe that this implosion is purely because we did not manage NASA as a coalition. With CORD, we managed CORD as a coalition.
All right. So we want to just also bring this issue to clarity and make it very limpid even for the viewers this morning. Where is the implosion arising from? First of all, is it because there was a pact, a happy medium right now, this deterrent between President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga? Or also, is it because now we have Senator Wetangula now ousted as the minority leader in Parliament? What are the issues?
I think the issues you are mentioning are just pertinent issues. They're pertinent issues. They're just part of the whole process. You see, like I would give you an example with the CORD coalition. When we got to the point of House leaderships and so on, we had a retreat. The whole CORD coalition. I remember I was on the forefront lobbying for the coastals to get the chief whip position. Yes. Because we felt that they were being denied something. That's how Mungaro got to be chief whip.
Yes.
Because we sat as a coalition, a PG, and agreed that, okay, this seat will give it to this group, and it has to be in this region. Then, for example, if a position was given to Fort Kenya, then we would sit down and say, okay, where does Fort Kenya take this position? Where do we take this position so that we are able to distribute the whatever properly? So at that time, I remember it's being very clear. I said, I'm Secretary General, therefore I've got a platform, and I'm from Bungoma, where my party leader is from. I believe this seat should go to a younger person, and that's how Chris Wamalwa got it. A younger person not from Bungoma. And that's how Chris Wamalwa got that position, so that we could be able to cover Rift Valley, because that one is transferred as part of Rift Valley. Okay. So what I'm saying is those kinds of negotiations were not there.
They were not
such
there.
That when many in the coalition, including the ODM side, they complained that they didn't get the committees they applied for.
They didn't get the committees.
Some did not get the committees they applied for. Right. Some did not even get any committee until it became an afterthought. So I think what we are facing in NASA is mismanagement. We didn't manage our coalition for the long haul. Okay. With CORD, we managed it for the long haul.
All right, fine. We want actually to look at two issues very keenly this morning. And the first is, how did Senator Wetangula rise to be the minority leader? Was it a consensus amongst the senators? Because I'm given to understand that did not really happen. And of course,
I think you're coming back to what I've just said.
Yeah, just a moment.
When we sat down and decided these things.
All right. But the question is, because no, this is where we
but this time we didn't.
You didn't.
Yes.
So how did he? How did he become? This is a very. He's from the Senate. I think
these were decisions being made by the These were decisions being made by the summit. The summit was making those decisions, and at some point, not even the whole summit. So I think it's just a case of mismanagement. We have to accept.
Thank you. Thank you.
I can also take part of the responsibility.
Thank you.
That we mismanaged our coalition, and it's dead now.
All right. Thank you. But my understanding is, and from the sources that I have, is that Wetangula was not duly elected as a minority leader by the senators.
Nobody was, even in the National Assembly, nobody was elected.
Yes, and nobody was
elected to any position.
Yes, but we want to know where these decisions arise or got.
They were coming from the summit.
All right, let's say from Dr. Otenemolo.
Debarl, you've asked Honorable Seli so many sets of questions that I don't know where to start from. But let me just say this. A woman who wants to divorce you will find any reason, including that now you sleep too much or you sleep too little. Things that they may or they may not have noticed earlier. From where I sit and from where we sit as ODM, we are still in NASA. NASA is a coalition, and Honorable Eseli Simu here serves in committees by virtue of that arrangement. Dr. Chris Wamala is still the minority, the deputy whip, by virtue of that arrangement. Honorable Mbui is still the deputy minority leader by virtue of that arrangement. It is by virtue of that arrangement that even in the Parliamentary Service Commission, we have members who are not ODM. It is by virtue of that arrangement that my friend, Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr., is still the whip in the Senate. It is by that arrangement that all the committees were shared out, not by ODM. In fact, if you want to know, the most disadvantaged lot of members of especially the National Assembly are ODM members, because the seats were shared out, irrespective of numbers. And some of us, including me, only serve in one committee. And some of my colleagues in Ford Kenya, in ANC, serve in 2 or 3 committees. So we are the most disadvantaged lot. Now, to say here, therefore, and this is a starting point, that there was no arrangement is to miss the point, and that is not true. Secondly, my friend Senator Moses Wetangula became leader of minority not by virtue of any election. It was a letter written on the instructions of Raila Amolo Odinga after a summit agreement. And it was written in the same way a letter was written to the Speaker, not to remove Wetangula. The interesting thing is that at that time, there was no election by the senators, but the letter was written by Norman Magaya and the Speaker accepted it. This time round, the letter was written in the same manner, but the Speaker rejected it. The Speaker, as you know, is a gentleman who has issues with Senator Moses Wetangula, from where they come from. So the Speaker, in his wisdom, decided that this time he would not accept the letter because there were no minutes. Yet initially when he was appointed, there were no minutes and he accepted it. And yet all this blame they are taking to Raila Amolo Odinga. They don't mention the Speaker's inconsistency. But let me now come back to this. But where we are about...
Before you go there, that issue of a letter that was written by Norman Magaya, yes. Who instructed that letter to be written?
It was instructed by Raila Amolo Odinga after consultation as the summit. The same way they had consulted initially when he was appointed. Let's put this in proper perspective. Where did the rain start beating us on this NASA issue? There are 3 things, and we can, if we had time, we can analyze them. 1 was the swearing in of 30th January. 2 was the meeting between Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Amolo Odinga. And 3 is the question of the removal of Moses Wetangula. And each of them we can analyze. The interesting thing is, the question of removal of Senator Wetangula is something that Raila was unaware of. I was with him on the same day at 2 p.m. when he was being informed that the process had been initiated. And he clearly instructed that that is a process that should not be undertaken because it runs contrary to the agreement as a summit. And he then immediately gave the instructions. Now, you will recall that then the speaker made a very interesting ruling. He made the ruling that while the meeting, and that was 30 minutes later, while the meeting that was constituted to remove Wetangula was lawful, the person appointed to remove him was not regularly appointed. Now, if the meeting is well constituted to remove, it must be well constituted to replace. If it is not, then it can't remove. So you must know that there are also the Bungoma political issues in there. But the second issue that you must accept is that the Senate has a level of institutional independence. And Raila did everything he could as a person to make sure that does not happen. And if you want to know, the person who signed and transmitted the letter was not an ODM person. He's a Senator, Mutula Kilonzo Jr., who is from Wiper. But he said that there must be a time when, as senators, as senior leaders, you must believe in your leadership. And as I understand it, the senators, and I think there are 27 of them, except one, all supported the idea of removal of Senator Wetangula. Where does Raila come in? Now, when we talk of bad words being thrown, betrayal, and I think my friend Senator Wetangula should stop using animal euphemisms, because they all end up coming out very badly. You know, they are hyenas, they are dogs and stuff like that. Raila has not said anything that you can say to be disparaging. And if he has, I would like to know what it is.
Thank you.
I think the bottom line is this. There's something in law called the right to first refusal. That is, you are given the opportunity that you must exercise your advantage. And for us in ODM, we believe we are in NASA. We have not done anything to negate the NASA principles. We went for the swearing in on 30th. We support the idea of Raila Amolo Odinga, the handshake with Uhuru Kenyatta, which then is supposed to start a process. And ODM had nothing to do with the removal of Senator Wetangula. So if all these are being cited as the reasons, then there are reasons which do not emanate from us or from Raila.
Right. Well, let's hear from Senator Aaron Cheruiyot, because now you're sitting, and of course you in the Senate, you've seen all this drama happening. What is your reading?
You know, 2 weeks ago, on this very panel, I was the first one to send then deputy leader sitting where Dr. Eseli is seated today, Boni Halwale, to tell him that it was within no long time, ODM senators were going to go for the position of minority leaders. And then 48 hours later, those words came to pass. You know,
so truly you're a prophet.
Truly, accord me the status that is deserved of. So I knew what was going on. And on this one, I want to say that I am with Eseli 100%. What Dr. Otiende is doing is speaking from both ends of the mouth. On one hand, he wants to get Raila off the blame, but on the other, he wants to speak about the local Bungoma politics that is there. Three things come to mind. One, the first thing, just reading overall the whole political equation of what is happening in NASA, is that the question the country needs to ask itself is, if breadcrumbs can bring this amount of war within NASA, what would have happened had they managed to get the whole buffalo? It would have been World War III in this country. Because if sharing even a small position like that of the minority leader brings this amount of war, where you're now beginning to call each other name and you are saying let us divorce and separate, and even a good lawyer of good standing like Dr. Otiende cannot even find the right words to explain these situations, because he knows that on this one they are flat out, because as a coalition you're supposed to have sat down and drafted your agreements properly and agreed that should we succeed, this is how we are going to share government. In the unfortunate or very likely event to some of us who understood and saw things leading up to 8th of August, they should have also drafted an agreement to say, in the unlikely event that we do not win this election, this is what we are supposed to agree. That did not happen. You know, when Dr. Otiende claims that there were local Bungoma politics at play, I think he's being unfair to the Speaker, and it is rather unfortunate of him, because Parliament is managed by standing orders. What Speaker Lusaka relied on when he followed the letter that was written to him is guidance of standing order number 19 in Senate, where after an election, parties or coalitions of parties are supposed to write to the Speaker and give information to the House leadership on who takes which position. The majority will write their letter and say, so-and-so is being appointed as our majority whip and majority leader. And the NASA coalition did the same. But standing order number 20, and this is something that Dr. Otiende needs to familiarize himself with, it gives leverage to senators of NASA to come and coalesce and sit around and say, we no longer have faith in the leadership of so-and-so, and therefore we are taking this decision. The letter that he's referring to from Norman Magaya has no place. Who is Norman Magaya in the Senate? Nobody knows him. The person that the Senate recognizes is one Senator, Mutula Kilonzo, who's the whip, and the whip of a party or a coalition of parties. He's the one who's given the mandate to write to the Speaker and explain and say, these are our party decisions as a coalition. That is what expressly happened. And therefore, we find ourselves in the current situation as is. Finally, the thing that I'd wish Kenyans to also remember is, please leave politics to the politicians. There are people who almost maimed each other on these streets, believing that they are comrades and they are fighting for a united and greater Kenya. But look at what is happening. All these things are temporary. You find themselves that the people you thought will never speak or will never shake hands are now calling each other brothers and enjoying a good round of golf on a Sunday afternoon, yet you broke ranks with your friends and people that you have lived with for so long because of politics. You know, this is where you find ourselves in. Therefore, the question that we need the big point that has come out of these discussions are the words that have come from none other than the Secretary General of Ford Kenya, a constituent party of NASA, that NASA is no more. It is dead and it is finished. The sooner Dr. Otiende realizes that and stops these shenanigans of telling us that ODM is still in NASA, the better, so that we can chat our way forward as a country and say,
okay, thank you.
Does ODM seed ground for Ford Kenya to become the official opposition?
All right.
Those are things we need to ask.
The way Dr. Otiende Omolo is also posturing ODM is like ODM is very, squeaky clean on everything. They went for the swearing in. Ford Kenya didn't come up for the swearing in. They followed every rule in the book.
When they say Ford Kenya, they mean Moses Wetangula. But they were members of Ford Kenya at the swearing in.
Yes,
and even members of ANC. And it's only the principle.
So according to Dr. Otiende Omolo is the fact that yet they've followed the rule in the book, you haven't followed.
No, but that's what I'm telling you, that they were members of Ford Kenya and members of ANC at the swearing in. So the idea that we didn't attend the swearing in is just referring to our party.
So he's speaking from both sides of the mouth.
No,
we'll come to you. We'll come to you. No, we'll come to you.
I never attacked the parties. We are only talking of the principles. And indeed, the rank and file of membership of the party is intact.
The nuances.
It's completely intact.
Thank you.
No one has been affected, not even my friend here.
Thank you.
No one has got to remove it.
Let's hear from Jared.
Well, let me begin by saying, Debarl, that had our election not been stolen and Cambridge Analytica did not unduly influence the outcome, we would have had enough positions to reward everybody. So any complaint regarding, we'd already have nothing and we are grumbling, that cannot arise, because even them, having taken our positions, each time they appear in State House for PG meetings, they are read the Riot Act from the beginning to the end. They will not admit that, but that is the truth. So it is quite unfortunate, though, that, at this early stage of this particular regime, we've started seeing signs of crumbling within NASA coalition. They're just signs, because we are not there yet. It is quite unfortunate because we just came out of a very difficult electoral process twice in a row, the 8th and the 26th charade of October. And here we are, very few months after that, and people are trying to poke holes from all directions in a bid to fragment completely the NASA coalition. But what happened at the Senate, I want to put it clear, that was a matter that was seized off by the Senate. And any outsider, be it Honorable Raila Odinga, Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, the ANC leader, I think they can only give an advisory opinion as to what happens at the Senate. The actual implementations of deliberations within the Senate is under the purview of the senators themselves. Remember...
But what would a letter written by Norman Magaya be doing in the Senate?
Well, you know, even when
if it's an advisory role, why would we have a letter from the CEO of
let me tell you, the speakers that we have, the two speakers, whom I respect very much, have had very incoherent rulings as regards any correspondence. Remember that WIPA is a political outfit within NASA coalition. WIPA chose to write directly to the speaker, not as a coalition, mandating one of its MPs to be in the Parliamentary Service Commission. The speaker, in his wisdom, accepted that letter, not as a coalition, but as a political party. But then when NASA as a coalition, through its CEO, writes to the speaker, then that is discarded. So you wonder why these incoherent rulings, but that is not, not for today. What I want to make clear is that Prime Minister Raila Odinga intervened on this matter, met with the senators, pumped sense in them, and advised them against removal of Honorable Moses Wetangula. Now, there were certain pronouncements that had been made before by Honorable Moses Wetangula that did not sit pretty well with the senators. So they said, regardless of the decision or the advice of the Prime Minister, they will proceed to dislodge Honorable Moses Wetangula as senators. So we cannot therefore come back and complain that Raila did absolutely nothing.
Thank you.
Now, one thing that you should also understand is that we had a coalition agreement, yes. Those positions, either parliamentary or either in the National Assembly or the Senate, did not form part of those coalition agreements. In fact, the principals who formed the summit were to occupy executive roles, and that is why we had the presidency, the deputy, the prime minister, and the deputy to take care of all these four people. So Moses Wetangula, therefore, serving as a Senate minority leader was an afterthought. Of course, he was a minority leader in the previous regime and is now a senator minority right now. So we cannot therefore say that it was a sign of entitlement. This was a goodwill from the summit, which comprises of all of them. And finally, they said they want to see Uhuru Kenyatta because they never believed what Honorable Raila Odinga told them. So I think these are elements that sometimes don't sit very well in a coalition. If a leader who's been appointed by all of us and is a leader of NASA coalition, we have to respect his decisions, we have to respect his moves, and ultimately respect any report that he gets from any quarters back to the people. But for them to insist that they want to see Uhuru Kenyatta, and Ruto is not insisting that he wants to see Raila Odinga, then to me is betrayal.
Right, betrayal.
But the original sin comes from the 30th of January.
All right, thank you. All right, let's hear from Wamatangi. I can see Wamatangi today is all smiles. He's been smiling as we began with Dr. Eseli. There's a free zone of delight. You're just walking through his body today. He cannot help it. In fact, just the smiles. Yeah, that's it. You don't need to say any word. We can actually close the show from here.
Let's be fair, Debarl. But you know, actually, the only reason I was smiling, and why I'm still smiling, is because today we have a new panelist in our panel here, Dr. Eseli. He's not been with us before.
Yes.
And it's a pleasant surprise to me that he's a gentleman and a legislator who chooses to be forthright and honest. This is a very rare quality in most leaders. That's why you saw every time when I was smiling at him. And thanks, Dr. Eseli, for acknowledging some basic truths. First, that a death has already occurred. And that death is of NASA. The only request I would make as a friend, because you see I've been sitting along this gentleman, is let us know where the matanga is, so that we can come and changa. And if you allow me just a little personal privilege, when you are writing the eulogy, please take him a paragraph for me. and I may have one or two things to say in the eulogy. But again, you know, I was also smiling at some of the comments made by, Dr. Otiende Amolo. And I was remembering those days when we used to read James Hadley Chase. When he's talking about that Raila and the principal never knew anything about the removal of Wetangula. And I was remembering the title of one novel I read by James Hadley Chase called Go Tell It to the Birds. Because the only thing you tell him about that kind of thing is go tell it to the birds. You know, Wetangula in his own words, and remember Wetangula is a principal. He has been a principal. There's a lot of information, and I know Dr. Otiende Amolo is well privileged to have quite a lot of latitude and access. But Wetangula as a principal knew a lot, and I would want you to remember what he said during his weekend rallies. He was telling the people of his own area with and accompanied by another principal. So that tells you that it is two principals in that meeting and making one statement. They're saying very, very clearly that we thought turifikilia mwenye atakuja kukula mbuzi na tunalinda mbuzi kutokana na fisi na bweha. Lakini mwenye aliyekuwa na kisu ya kukula mbuzi ni mchungaji. It was the shepherd. Now what does that tell you when he says that? He's saying very clearly and in the presence of Musalia Mudavadi. That's the key thing. That he's not saying it alone in his house. In a public rally, accompanied by none other than Dr. Boni Halwale. And all of them, remember Mudavadi is from ANC, the other two gentlemen are from Ford, Kenya. And that tells you that the statements by Daktari are true. The first thing I would want, only two things. First, I want to clear with Daktari Otiende Amolo is my brother, you know the standing orders. In Parliament, if you want to be either a minority leader, a majority leader, the standing orders, I said here last time, are very clear. If a majority of senators from your coalition or from your party sit anywhere, not necessarily even in Parliament, even if you go and sit in a hotel and bring a resolution as majority of senators of that coalition and we say this is the man we propose, even if Raila Odinga said this he would not be, then he would not. But this is the key thing. That letter, for information of anybody who was not in the Senate because we were, was signed by a total of 17 senators. They're the ones who signed. Each one of them. Present. Not by proxy. And then they went and handed over the letter. So when Otiende Amolo tries to say that the Speaker of the Senate decided to ignore a letter from an individual called Norman Magaya and then give credence to this letter signed by 17 senators. And the reason why I've used the number 17, Debarl, is intentional and clarifying. Count the number of senators from Ford, Kenya. It is only one, Moses Wetangula. Count the number of senators in that house from ANC. Count from Wiper. The rest are from ODM. So how many senators from ODM signed for the removal of Wetangula? Majority, all of them, other than Mutula Kilonzo Jr. and a few of the others. More than almost 9 or 10 were from the ODM coalition. That tells you that Wetangula's goose was cooked way before it was served on his table. Now, lastly, let me say this.
I thought today was
let me say this, that this is a lesson for this country. And I say this as a political leader because I agree 100% with what Dr. Eseli said earlier, that indeed you can trace your errors from failing to manage your coalition. That's what you started by saying. And it is not only failing to manage your coalition. If we do not manage political formations in this country, if political formations are formed around what NASA never was, because NASA was never national. It was never super in the first place. So all those things they call themselves about National Super Alliance, they were neither of them. They were never an alliance. And I can say this to Kenyans who are listening this morning. If you remember when they first met, the first thing they refused to do was to dissolve their parties or come together. They said we are going to remain distinct and individual, and we are going to have each our own ways. So out of all those things, the lessons Kenyans would say we have learned from the death of NASA as we go then for the funeral is this, that if political formations are around the interest of individuals so that they can get and find what they want, then it can never work either for our people, for the population, or even for the greater good of the country. It is about themselves. That's why it never worked, and it can never work anywhere else.
Right. All right, let's just get some closing remarks from Dr. Eseli and all of you. Just 30 seconds, please.
I think what has transpired was NASA played into the hands of Jubilee. If I recall, Duale one time in the National Assembly said his mission is to ensure that NASA breaks up before the end of March. And I think NASA played into their hands. As for the Speaker of the Senate, my advice to him is that he's a bit unwise in some of the things he does. Because when we had a by-election for the Senate in Bungoma, we advised him as the senator, as the governor for Bungoma, even if he was supporting Kombo, to do it from behind the scenes. But he came out supporting Kombo. That messed up his relationship in the county with the majority who voted for Wetangula. Now this time, he has a deputy speaker, whom he should have delegated this role to. But he opted to do it himself, which again further shows how unwise he is. And that's probably why he even lost the governorship of Bungoma, because of that unwise kind of behavior. However, the meeting between Raila and Kenyatta, nobody among the constituent parties of NASA has been against it. And that's a fact. The only thing the other principals said that they were not aware that there was going to be a meeting. And there was nothing. Were they supposed to cheat and say they were aware? They were not aware, but eventually we had a meeting where the Honorable Raila explained to the principals, and they said, okay, fine. We'll retreat to our respective parties, have our necks accept this. And actually all the necks of the other parties accepted that. So continuing blaming them that they are not for that handshake, I think is trying to find fault where there isn't any.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Eseli.
Finally,
briefly, 30 seconds
they accuse Wetangula of being arrogant, being what? You mean from 2013? Now is when they are discovering that.
They being who?
The senators.
30 seconds.
The ODM senators, who many of them were re-elected.
Yes.
Who many of them were re-elected. Now is when they are discovered. Since 2013.
30 seconds out.
Debarl, I would understand why Cheriot and Eseli are speaking the same language. Because over the weekend, the Musalia and Wetangula were in Nandi, and that was the language. You have the duo threatening divorce and a suitor trying to entice. So it's understandable. Secondly, and this is my last.
He's a processing lawyer.
If the mistakes, we've said that we've identified 3 things: swearing in of 30th, the handshake, and removal of Wetangula. Where is Raila's mistake? Was it for going for the swearing in? Is it the betrayal? Is the betrayal meeting Uhuru Kenyatta, and yet everyone has reiterated twice after that they're in support? Or is it removal of Senator Wetangula? And if it is, you can't have your cake and eat it, Senators Cheruiyot and Kimani. If you say Norman Magaya is a stranger and therefore his letter is irrelevant, then Raila is equal a stranger in the Senate. So where is his mistake?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, Senator Cheriot, 30 seconds.
You know, Jared and Otiende are still new in Parliament, and therefore I understand their struggle with standing orders. That's why they don't want to concede that Norman Magai is a stranger and has nothing to do.
I can donate my standing order here, maybe to
give him a soft copy. Secondly,
I give it.
second thing. Second thing.
Yeah,
Let him not distract me. Second thing is that what you're seeing is a battle for the heart and soul of the Western Kenya voting bloc. Nothing short of it. That's why Raila Odinga continues to use other junior leaders, junior politically to Wetangula and Mudavadi, in the name of Senator Cleophas Malala, Senator George Haniri, and Edwin Sifuna, to go and sell his message to the Western Kenya bloc. And I hope, I know you heard the words that they spoke last weekend in Western Kenya, that we are now the newly appointed leaders, which is rather unfortunate from Raila Odinga, because he should have learned in 2010, when he made the same mistake in Rift Valley, he lost
30
that
seconds
block.
over.
He will lose Western again.
Thank you.
Just allow me 10 seconds to say
No.
Because
The last time I said standing orders.
The last time I said something, it came to pass.
Jared, please. Jared.
This Wamalu are telling me he's next on the chopping board.
Aaron Cheriot.
ODM are going for his seat.
Or next. Okay, let's hear from Jared.
Well,
next time I won't give you time.
Yeah, Brother Debarl, you know, Kenya is a country known for disdain for democracy. We cannot live in isolation of intra-coalition disagreements. And that is a testament towards democracy within a political outfit. So all the noises you are hearing around, and our coalition leaders are embracing them, is that because they embrace democracy within our coalition. I want to put it clear, and this should go on record, that NASA is not going to break anytime sooner. We have gone through difficulties before, and we have come out of them stronger.
Thank you.
So anyone, waiting for a hand to drop for a hyena to eat or to feast on.
Thank you. All right, Senator Motangi.
No. 30 seconds. Too far away.
Thank you.
To start talking about today. So let us settle matters around 2017 elections and then move forward.
All right, Senator Motangi.
Debarl, you must agree that today these things are very thick. I mean, you hear now you're even being called brother.
He's always a brother. He's never been a sister. Have you ever been a sister before?
30 seconds. We need to wind up.
But that happens a lot, especially when you are in a state of denial.
Briefly.
Like this.
30 seconds are over.
No, anyway, the only thing I would want to say to my colleagues here as political leaders is we must tidy up our politics and our leadership. And I'm glad I've had Dr. Eseli there saying, because I was reading this headline, this line here that you never referred to. You see, Wamalo here was saying that I am sick. Wamalo, very sick. I'm very sick of this squabbling, and I'm ready to quit. So I mean, if the leaders inside there are talking about sickness, then you're also saying that citizens down there who they represent are even more sick.
Thank you.
And so unless we tidy up our act, and that starts by then removing this unhygienic coalition that was there before, let us have new political formations, as has been started by the handshake now, and the country can move forward in one direction as one people.